This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 229, The Art of Looking Like a Fool by Cain of Raptitude.com.
Get ready to maximize your potential with Optimal Living Daily, the podcast that brings you the best in personal development and productivity every day of the week. Your optimal life awaits. Now here's your host, Justin Malik.
Hello. Welcome to the Optimal Living Daily podcast, the podcast where I get permission from authors of some of the best blogs on the planet and read them to you, all for free. A pretty good deal for you if you ask me, and I'm happy to do it. I found listeners of this podcast to be the nicest people I've heard from ever, seriously. I think if you're looking to listen to these types of posts that will help you optimize your life and really to better yourself, you're probably doing it because you realize there is a better you out there, and you understand that we can always work on ourselves to make the world a better place. And if everyone did that, it would be a better place. All that to say, thank you for listening. And if you've written to me before, thank you for that, because I've only received nice words. Even criticism has been framed in a good or lighthearted way, and I appreciate that. Anyway, it would usually be Wellness Wednesday, but I just launched my brother's podcast, Optimal Health Daily, which is another spinoff to this show. So since he's reading the health and wellness articles, I thought I'd continue reading my usual stuff, which is mostly personal development and minimalism posts. If you want some awesome articles on diet and fitness, wellness, pretty much all things health, search for Optimal Health Daily and subscribe to that one too. It helps support this podcast if you do. And this is getting long, so let's jump right in and start optimizing your life. The Art of Looking Like a Fool by Cain of Raptitude.com. You've probably experienced a phenomenon we could call the spiral of delay. You put off an obligation repeatedly until it seems so stupid that you haven't done it yet that the thought of doing it becomes almost humiliating, so you delay a little longer. You can't always know what costs you'll face in embarrassment and penalties to, say, renew your tenant insurance 11 weeks late, but we all know that those costs can only get larger when you make it into 16 weeks or 6 months. Yet so often we procrastinate anyway, for a very predictably worse outcome. I suppose some of you do everything more or less on time and don't know what I'm talking about. You can click away now if you like, or you can continue to read out of curiosity about what's quietly tormenting many of your fellow humans. From the emails I get, I know that many of you are horrendous procrastinators like I am, and that for you, having something on your to-do list that's 2 months or 2 years overdue is totally normal, if not exactly comfortable. Part of what we procrastinators worry about is that everyone will find out we aren't really adults. We avoid a task for the usual reasons at first. We can't find a good time this week. We need to look something up before we do it. But once we've delayed 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years on it, we start avoiding it for a different reason, because doing it so absurdly late is revealing to the world, and maybe confirming for ourselves, that we are failed adults, incompetent people all around. About a year ago, I realized it had been about a year since I paid my yearly fee for my P.O. box. I'm not sure what else happened that day, but I definitely didn't go down to the post office. I remembered it again 3 months after that. I knew it had almost certainly lapsed by then, and it needed to be sorted out. But already I felt dumb for not having acted when a responsible person would have. By that point, doing the task wasn't just an annoying prospect, it was an embarrassing one. The usual rationalizations surfaced. They hadn't phoned yet. Maybe I'd inadvertently paid for 2 years. Knowing I'd feel sheepish and stupid no matter when I went, it seemed not entirely unreasonable to do it later. Stupidity grows when we hide it. That was 9 months ago, and finally I went down there yesterday, having thought about it at least weekly for the last few months. This tiny to-do was so built up by this point that walking down there felt like I was doing something much more serious, like reporting for the draft or getting baptized. No matter how small the thing, the act of avoiding it for so long makes it huge in your mind. And in a way, it is huge, because now the clerk or revenue agent or doctor you're dealing with can finally call you out on not being an adult. You would have no defense against this charge. They would only have to ask you the perfectly reasonable question, "Why are you only doing this now?" And you would have to say, "Well, you see, I'm a moron." Some clever famous person, Oscar Wilde, Jerry Seinfeld, once said something like, quote, "If you're caught in a vicious cycle of your own doing, just turn left someplace where you normally turn right," unquote. My normal impulse, when I do finally tackle an overdue obligation, is to do my utmost to conceal my stupidity, despite the evidence. I feel like I need explanations prepared that are more satisfying than, yeah, I just took an absurdly long time to get around to this. But this time, I did something totally different. I decided to embrace my general incompetence and make no efforts to obscure it or minimize it. I figured it's better to come off like Forrest Gump than to make another vain attempt to come off as the 99% organized person I for some reason think I should be. I walked into the post office fully willing to represent myself as obtuse, incompetent, completely oblivious to what's expected of a functioning person. And wow, was it liberating. I felt bulletproof, because there's nothing I felt the need to defend against. It was a strange sensation for me to have no vital areas I felt I had to protect with excuses or rhetoric or hope. The truth is, most people you deal with will do anything to avoid openly implying that you're an idiot. That's at least as embarrassing for them as being one is for you. Admitting and embracing personal incompetence is a lot easier when you first recognize and embrace the incompetence of our species in general. If you've ever had to hire someone, you've seen at least one convincing sample of human ineptitude in the flood of completely unhireable people that respond to every job posting and who won't hesitate for a second to insist they're perfect for it. Nobody's a grown-up at everything. I now believe that all adults are grossly incompetent in at least a few areas, maybe many. Everyone's failings are just distributed differently across their respective lives. We meet society's standards and our own in a few areas and fall pitifully short in others. And that's normal. What's not normal is accepting it. We're all adults when it comes to certain things, but never everything. Sure, I push certain easy things off for weeks or years, but I do floss at least 360 days a year, and I wonder how many Fortune 500 CEOs could say the same. So what happened when I finally went down to the post office without my usual determination to avoid looking dumb? As you might have guessed, it was completely painless, took less than 5 minutes, and went down in a way I never could have predicted anyway. Apparently, they have no record of my having rented the box. At some point, they rented it out to someone else, even though I was never notified, and even though I still have a working key. Oddly, or maybe tellingly, the 4 pieces of mail sitting in the box were addressed to 4 different people, none of whom were me or the quote-unquote current renter. The young clerk was about as embarrassed at the post office's bumbling as I feared I would be about mine, and I ended up being the one graciously fielding the apologies. "Oh, it's no problem. I'm sure it'll get cleared up," I said with genuine compassion. The situation itself isn't resolved, she'll call on Monday, but my need to avoid it certainly is. I am fully aware that at least some of the incompetence that created this mess is mine, and I'm enjoying this new feeling of being completely okay with that. You just listened to the post titled The Art of Looking Like a Fool by Cain of Raptitude.com. And I totally relate because I do postpone stuff like that for years sometimes. And once again, super quick, if you could take a second to subscribe to my new spin-off podcast, Optimal Health Daily, my brother and I would greatly appreciate it. It's an awesome way to show your support. I'll leave it at that. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you tomorrow with a post from Good Life Zen, where your optimal life awaits.
Hey, this is Dan from the Optimal Finance Daily podcast, which is a lot like this show, except more focused on personal finance. Justin handpicks the best posts he can find from blogs and authors like Ramit Sethi, Mr. Money Mustache, and more, and I read them to you 5 days a week. So if you enjoy this podcast, come on over and subscribe to Optimal Finance Daily too. And together, we'll optimize your financial life.
You've been listening to Optimal Living Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode, and head to oldpodcast.com, that's OLDpodcast.com, for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.